Mercantilism: History, Functioning, and Decline. Welcome to this fascinating journey through one of the most important chapters of economic history, mercantilism. Today, we will explore how it emerged, how it worked, the different types of mercantilism, and why it eventually ended. Get ready for a mix of economic analysis, historical context, and a touch of humor. The beginnings of mercantilism. Mercantilism was born in Europe between the 16th and 18th centuries, during a period of great discoveries and colonial expansion. Picture the emerging nations of the time, eager for power and wealth, believing that prosperity was measured by the amount of gold and silver they accumulated. It was the era of Columbus, new trade routes, and a world full of possibilities. This economic system was consolidated through policies that promoted the accumulation of precious metals through a positive trade balance. Governments imposed high tariffs on imports and subsidized exports, all for gold. How mercantilism worked. Mercantilism worked through state intervention in the economy. Governments strictly regulated trade to maximize the accumulation of precious metals. Colonies were fundamental as they provided cheap raw materials and bought the manufactured products of the metropolis. It was a perfect cycle. Well, almost perfect. Merchant companies, like the famous British East India Company, were state tools to control trade. These companies had monopolies over certain trade routes and exploited colonial resources for the benefit of the mother nation. Imagine those ships loaded with spices, silk, and other exotic goods sailing back to Europe. It was an era of commercial adventures. Types of mercantilism. France, Colbertism. In France, Colbertism, named after Jean-Baptiste Colbert, minister of Louis XIV, promoted manufacturing and self-sufficiency. Colbert believed that a strong national industry was essential for the country's wealth. He focused on creating royal manufactures, protected by high import tariffs and supported by government subsidies. France sought to be self-sufficient and export more than it imported, strengthening its economy. Spain, extractive mercantilism. In Spain, the focus was on extracting precious metals from its American colonies. Spanish galleons arrived loaded with gold and silver, which were then used to finance wars and royal projects. However, excessive dependence on these metals led to an undiversified economy vulnerable to fluctuations in the production of American mines. Italy, maritime trade. Italy, especially city-states like Venice and Genoa, excelled in maritime trade. These cities controlled crucial trade routes in the Mediterranean and beyond, acting as intermediaries between East and West. Italian mercantilism focused on creating wealth through the trade of luxury goods, such as spices, silk, and manufactured products. England, commercial mercantilism. England developed a more diversified approach. English mercantilist policies included promoting national manufacturing and controlling maritime routes. The Navigation Acts, for example, stipulated that goods imported to England had to be transported in English ships or those of the origin countries, thus strengthening the English merchant navy. Additionally, England encouraged colonization to secure raw materials and markets for its manufactured goods. Netherlands, trade and finance. The Netherlands stood out for its focus on trade and finance. The Dutch developed a global trade network and established the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, one of the first in the world. Their merchant fleet was the largest in Europe, and the Bank of Amsterdam facilitated international trade. Dutch mercantilism was characterized by high efficiency in trade and financial innovation. Germany, fragmentation and local trade. In Germany, mercantilism took a different form due to the political fragmentation of the Holy Roman Empire. Each German state implemented its own mercantilist policies, focusing on local trade and manufacturing production. Cities like Hamburg and Bremen became important commercial centers, while other regions specialized in producing specific goods. The decline of mercantilism. By the late 18th century, mercantilism began to lose strength. New economic ideas, especially those of Adam Smith, proposed that free trade and competition were more beneficial for the prosperity of nations. His work, The Wealth of Nations, argued that state intervention limited economic growth. Additionally, the costs of maintaining colonial empires and growing resistance in the colonies made mercantilism increasingly unsustainable. Wars, like the Napoleonic Wars, drained the resources of European nations, further weakening the system. Conclusion: mercantilism left a mixed legacy. It promoted the economic growth of European nations and laid the foundations for global trade, but also perpetuated colonial exploitation and trade wars. Its end marked the beginning of a new economic era, that of capitalism and free trade. And there you have it, friends. A journey from the golden beginnings of mercantilism to its inevitable decline. Now you know why our ancestors were so obsessed with gold. See you on the next economic adventure.